how to build financial patience in an urgent world. We live in a world that trains impatience. Everything is faster. Everything is louder. Everything feels like it's happening now. Notifications, deadlines, breaking news, endless comparison. And inside this environment, patience doesn't just feel difficult. It feels irresponsible. Waiting feels like falling behind. Slowing down feels like losing. Not acting feels like a mistake. So when it comes to money, patience is quietly eroded. Not because people don't value it, but because the environment punishes it emotionally. Let's start with a truth most people don't hear. Financial patience is not a personality trait. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be built, even in an urgent world. Now let's talk about what patience actually is. Patience is not passive waiting. It's not denial. It's not blind faith. Patience is emotional tolerance. The ability to sit with uncertainty without panicking. The ability to delay relief without collapsing. The ability to trust process longer than discomfort lasts. In an urgent world, that tolerance is constantly under attack. Now let's talk about urgency conditioning. Urgency is learned. Deadlines train it. Notifications train it. Notifications train it. Comparison trains it. The brain learns, if I don't act now, I'll miss out. If I don't respond now, something bad happens. This conditioning leaks into money decisions. People feel pressure to optimize constantly, to react to every fluctuation, to chase momentum. Patience feels unnatural because urgency has been rehearsed daily. Now, let's talk about the emotional cost of urgency. Urgency narrows thinking. It shortens time horizons. It exaggerates consequences. Under urgency, everything feels like a now or never moment. And that perception destroys patience. Now let's talk about why patience feels unsafe. For many people, waiting has been painful. Waiting for raises that never came. Waiting for stability that never arrived. Waiting while life felt on hold. So patience became associated with disappointment. The brain learned waiting hurts. That association makes patience emotionally dangerous. Now let's talk about rebuilding patience from scratch. You don't start by telling yourself to wait longer. You start by making waiting survivable. Patience grows when waiting feels safe. Now let's talk about shrinking time horizons. Long timelines overwhelm anxious systems. Telling someone this will pay off in 20 years doesn't calm them. It increases pressure. Patience grows through short, visible intervals. Weeks, months, quarterly markers. When progress is visible within survivable timeframes, patience stabilizes. Now let's talk about feedback loops. Patience requires feedback. Without feedback, the brain assumes failure. So systems must provide signals, automatic contributions, consistent savings, predictable habits. These systems quietly say something is happening, even if you can't see it yet. Now let's talk about removing urgency triggers. You cannot build patience while bathing in urgency. Constant news, constant checking, constant comparison. These keep the nervous system activated. Patience requires distance, less checking, less reacting, less exposure to hype, not avoidance, containment. Now let's talk about boredom. Boredom is the emotional gateway to patience. But most people interrupt boredom immediately. They scroll, they plan, they optimize. Boredom feels like stagnation in an urgent world. But boredom is actually stabilization. It's the nervous system slowing down. If you can tolerate boredom without escaping it, patience begins to grow. Now let's talk about identity. Many people identify as fast, driven, always moving. Patience threatens that identity. So building patience requires redefining competence. Competence is not speed. Competence is consistency. This redefinition is uncomfortable, but freeing. Now let's talk about trust again. Patience is impossible without trust. Not trust in outcomes, trust in process. Process trust is built by repetition, doing the same thing when nothing dramatic happens, staying consistent through flat periods, letting time pass without intervention. Each repetition strengthens trust. Now let's talk about emotional regulation. Patience collapses when emotions spike. So the real work is regulating emotional response to delay. Discomfort doesn't mean danger. Boredom doesn't mean failure. Waiting doesn't mean wasting time. Learning this takes repetition. Now let's talk about the urge to intervene. Intervention provides relief, but relief is not progress. Every time you resist unnecessary intervention, you strengthen patience. You teach the brain, I don't need to act to feel okay. Now let's talk about money specifically. Financial patience grows when money systems are boring. Predictable income, automatic saving, simple investing, clear rules, complexity increases urgency, simplicity increases patience. Now let's talk about patience during setbacks. Setbacks trigger urgency. This isn't working. I need to change something. Sometimes change is needed. Often patience is. The skill is learning to tell the difference. Now let's talk about the final misunderstanding. People think patient people are calm because they don't care. They care deeply. They've just trained themselves not to react emotionally to delay. Now let's talk about the turning point. At some point, patience stops feeling like effort. It becomes the default. Urgency feels noisy. Hype feels exhausting. Speed feels unnecessary. That shift doesn't happen suddenly. It happens quietly. Now let's close with the deepest truth of this video. You don't build financial patience by fighting urgency. You build it by making time feel safe again. Safe enough to wait. Safe enough to stay consistent. Safe enough to let compounding work. In an urgent world, patience is not weakness. It's a competitive advantage. Because while others rush, panic, and overpay for speed, patient people let time do the heavy lifting, quietly, relentlessly, in their favor. And in the long run, time rewards those who don't try to escape it, but learn how to live inside it. There's another reason patience feels so difficult in an urgent world. Urgency provides identity feedback. When you act quickly, you feel decisive. When you react fast, you feel relevant. When you move constantly, you feel involved. Patience offers none of that. It doesn't congratulate you. It doesn't signal progress loudly. It doesn't reward effort immediately. So people mistake silence for stagnation. Now let's talk about emotional substitution. In an urgent environment, action substitutes for reassurance. You don't act because it's the best move. You act because it calms anxiety. Patience removes that coping mechanism, and when anxiety has no outlet, it demands attention. This is why building patience feels emotionally intense at first. You're removing a familiar regulator. Now let's talk about the role of predictability again, but more subtly. Predictability calms the nervous system, not because it's exciting, because it's boring. Boredom is safety without stimulation, and safety without stimulation feels empty before it feels peaceful. Most people don't stay long enough to feel the peace. They escape the boredom. Now let's talk about micro-trust. Patience isn't built by trusting the future all at once. It's built by trusting the next interval. This week will be okay. This month won't collapse. This system will run without me touching it. Each small trust builds capacity. Now let's talk about emotional muscle. Patience is an emotional muscle. It strengthens through exposure, not avoidance. Each time you wait without intervening, each time you don't check, each time you don't react, the muscle grows. Now, let's talk about discomfort normalization. Discomfort is part of patience, not a sign of failure. Not a warning, just information. When discomfort no longer triggers action, patience stabilizes. Now let's talk about speed addiction. Urgent environments train speed addiction. Fast feedback, instant gratification, immediate results. Patience feels slow in comparison, but speed addiction burns out decision quality. Patience restores clarity. Now let's talk about the quiet power shift. At some point, patient people stop chasing certainty. They stop trying to eliminate uncertainty. They learn to coexist with it. That coexistence is freedom. Now let's talk about patience and self-respect. Rushing often signals distrust in yourself. Patience signals self-respect. I don't need to prove anything right now. I trust my systems. I don't need constant confirmation. This self-respect compounds. Now let's talk about patience as subtraction. Patience grows faster when you subtract noise. Fewer inputs, fewer opinions, fewer comparisons. Silence is not emptiness. It's space for regulation. Now let's talk about patience under pressure. Pressure doesn't disappear. Patience allows you to feel pressure without obeying it. That's the distinction. Now let's talk about the final transformation. When patience is fully integrated, urgency feels unnecessary. You still act, you still decide, you still move forward, but you don't rush. And because you don't rush, mistakes decrease. Costs shrink. Stress lowers. Outcomes improve. Now let's close with the deepest truth of this entire arc. Patience is not waiting for life to happen. It's trusting that life doesn't require constant interference. In a world designed to make you feel late, behind, and rushed, patience is rebellion. Quiet rebellion, and the people who master it don't look impressive in the moment. But years later, their lives feel unusually stable. Not because they were faster, but because they were willing to stay when others ran. That's how patience wins, not loudly, but lastingly.